In this video, I'm going to be comparing two of Nutrimill's grain mills, their least expensive grain mill, the Impact, and their most expensive grain mill, the Harvest. Remember that there is a middle ground grain mill they offer, and I'll talk about that later in the video. I just don't happen to own one of these. I do want to, before we get started, talk about how I ended up with each of these because I think it's important. The Impact grain mill is the first grain mill I ever owned, and I bought this off Amazon with my own money. The Harvest, I was lucky enough to win this off of an Instagram giveaway. I won this, as well as the sourdough kit from Nutrimill, and I'll show that when I show you my baking cart later in the video. So I bought this one, I won this one. So Nutrimill had nothing to do with me getting either of these, and so all the opinions and everything that I say in this video are totally mine. Now, I will say that after owning these, I did apply to be an affiliate with Nutrimill. So the links in the description are affiliate links. If you choose to buy one, I get a small commission at no cost to you. It's just a really great way to help support the channel if you're gonna buy one anyway. To get us started, I'm gonna go through all of the stats comparing these grain mills as well as the classic grain mill, which again, I don't have here in front of me. Then we're gonna do a couple comparative tests. And at the end, I'm gonna share my experience with both of these grain mills and help you make the perfect choice for your needs. First and most significant for me when I was getting started is the cost. We have the Impact at $240, the Classic at $300, and then quite a big jump up for the Harvest at $500. The way these mills grind is different as well. The Impact and the Classic both use stainless steel high-speed impact to mill the grains, while the Harvest is a stone grind. That affects the texture of the grains you can get, both the Impact and the Classic. Using that same impact, you can get fine to coarse, while the Harvest is fine to cracked. The grains you can grind in each of these mills, the Impact, small to medium-sized grains, the Classic, small to large, and the Harvest, with that stone grind, you can do small to extra large. Depending on what you're milling, the temperature it operates at is going to be a little bit different. About 118 degrees is standard for both the Impact and the Classic, but between 100 and 115 for the Harvest, just depending on what texture you're getting. The hopper capacity, maybe this is important for you if you're trying to bake, a lot at one time, or you've got a pattern you're trying to keep. The hopper capacity in the Impact is 8 cups. In the Classic, it's 12 cups. And in the Harvest, only 5 cups. The canister capacity correlates in both the Impact and the Classic. We've got a 12-cup canister capacity in the Impact, a 20-cup canister capacity in the Classic, and the Harvest doesn't use a canister. You're just going to be milling into your own bowl, and so they list that as continuous. I mean, you can kind of just exchange the bowl or whatever size bowl you have. And then this is something that was really interesting to me when I was researching which one I wanted to buy, is the warranty. Now, both the Impact and the Classic have a limited lifetime warranty, but the Harvest, the most expensive out of all of them, has only a 5-year warranty. To run upstairs and get the kids to bed. But now that we went through all the stats, we'll show you how each of these look on my baking cart and give you like a little mini baking cart tour, and then talk about my general experience with both of these and kind of the things that I liked and don't like. And then at the very end, tomorrow morning, I'm going to do a couple tests to see how loud these things actually are and how quickly they can mill the same amount of grain. I'll briefly go over my baking cart just so you can kind of see what I have in there, and you can get an idea of the size of each of these mills on that cart that I use. The Impact is significantly larger and it takes up the entire top tray, which is fine because that's what I intended to use it for, and I just mill typically with it right here in the cart. I don't move it to the countertop. Right here next to the mill, I keep my tools. I've got my dough whisk, a little brush for cleaning the mill. I keep my spray bottle with a little bit of water for if I decide to use that. And then I can't stand bread lames. And so I have just always used an exchangeable blade knife. This is the outdoor edge, but whatever. If you're not familiar, this part comes off and you have little replacement blades. Does that focus? And so whenever it gets dull, you just switch this off. And so like the lame, it stays sharp, but you don't have to have an open blade with a little sheath. It's just this locks closed, and I love that. It just is so much, and it's easier to hold, and it's not like a curve. I just hate lames, and I love the exchangeable blade knives, and I use this for everything. I can't say enough good things. Okay, but as far as the cart, I also have my bench scraper and then the rounded one, so I keep those here. Down on the next level, I have some all-purpose flour and salt. one of these silicone things, and this stretches over whatever bowl my dough is in. I've got, you know, my tea towels, and then some bread bags. I've actually never used these. These came in the Nutrimill kit, and so I just have them on here. And then finally, of course, my bannetons. I've got 2 of them. And then my silpats, both the ones that go in my baking dishes, and as well as some that I put on my baking trays. And this has really helped me like get the bottoms of my loaves a little bit more consistent and not getting quite as burned. And then last, I've got the instructions for both of the mills. I'm going to start with the Impact since that's the one that I bought. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. This one is significantly heavier. This one's, the Harvest is 16 pounds and this one's only 10 pounds. The Classic, 13 pounds, so right in the middle. Impact, like I said at the beginning of the video, I bought this off Amazon and I was like, I had wanted one so desperately for so long and I was so excited to get it. And I broke it taking it out of the box, and I was devastated because I'd literally been counting the days until it arrived. And what I did, let me get the canister off here. So right here there's some little tabs, and the way that it opens, it like takes some finesse and you have to get it angled right and do it gently, and it does say exactly how to do it. I follow the directions exactly, and I snapped off this part, the push handle. And I was so disappointed, and I had to send it back and, you know, said what happened, like told them that I broke it taking it out of the box, and they sent me a new one right away. And so that was good. But I was really disappointed with how flimsy it felt, and honestly, just like the way it was designed. This was my first grain mill, so I wasn't sure exactly what to expect. And so what I was doing is I was weighing the grain that I needed and pouring it into the hopper, and then, you know, would use whatever came out in my recipe. And what I was surprised to find out after doing a couple of like tests and measuring, well, first what I put in, weighing what I put in, and then weighing what I got out. And I was losing a significant amount of flour just to all of these like nooks and crannies, and oops, like right here, it just had so many surfaces to stick to that I was losing some flour that was just residue within the canister and like the tubing every time. This part comes off here, and I was getting a lot trapped in this piece. And I mean, it depends on how exact you need your measurements. And of course I could have just been like milling and then weighing afterwards, and that's what I started doing until I got the other one, to make sure that I was getting the quantities that I needed. But I just assumed like the weight of grain that I put in would be the weight of flour that I got out, and that was not the case with this one. I was totally happy with the flour that I got out and with the, you know, ability to control the coarseness of the flour that I got out. So in that way, I was super happy with the Impact. And it was exciting just in and of itself to be milling my own grains. However, I still put in for that contest on Instagram and won the Harvest, and I was so excited to try that out. There are so many fewer moving parts in the Harvest because there's no canister, so there's no like connections or pieces to break. It just is like a sturdy like little cube, and then you've got your hopper here, and it's just like you just set it, it just sets and nests on top, so there's no like connections to snap like I did on the Impact. So like structurally I was just so immediately impressed with this, and
you know, heavier. It just feels sturdier. The wood, I mean, if it matches like your style or aesthetic, it doesn't match anything in my kitchen, but I think it's really beautiful. Love that I didn't have to worry about the canister like capacity. I could just stick whatever bowl I was using under there, or have, you know, another bowl to swap places with if I was milling a lot right then. Again, super happy with the flour that I got out of this one. I wouldn't say that it was noticeably different for my purposes, like what I use flour for. Their abilities are slightly different. This one can mill up to extra large and to cracked coarseness. Um, and that's just due to the stone grind as opposed to the impact grind of the impact or the classic.
Okay, so I'm gonna mill 175 grams of wheat in each of the mills, and I have a decibel tracker on my phone, and then after I take the videos, I'll put on the screen how long it took for each of them to mill. I'm gonna be milling some soft white wheat. And if you're not familiar, the soft wheats are more for like stuff with baking powder, like cakes or muffins and biscuits and things like that. Whereas the hard wheats are for like yeast, sourdough breads, things like that. So anyways, 175 grams, soft white wheat in the impact. I'm gonna have my dial set to 3. So 2 to 3 is what they recommend for wheat. And I've just always found that 2 is too fine and it moves really slowly. And so I really want it to be like a comparable grind to what we're gonna get with the harvest as far as speed and things like that. So I'm gonna set my dial to 3. Now with the impact, you fill the hopper before you turn it on, which is opposite of the harvest. So I'm gonna pour in my wheat. I'm gonna make sure my decibel thing's going. And then I'm gonna turn my dial to 3. So you can see that it's not a ton, but there is like a lot of flour that you need to brush out in all of these different spaces, especially down in here. I find that you just need to be so delicate with removing the top because just the way it unhinges. I always get a little bit of spilling there. You can see there's a lot to brush out in all of these different spots. And having never used the classic, I don't know if the design is comparable to this. Okay, I've got 175 grams of wheat for the harvest as well. And with this one, you start the mill before adding grains. And I have this set, it's a dial on top. I have this set for wheat, the finest grain for wheat as well.
So if I had to start all over again, which one would I buy? I honestly don't think I'd buy either of these. I think I would go down the middle road and go with the classic. I think this one, you're getting what you pay for. Like, it just doesn't feel as sturdy as it should. Me breaking it right out of the box was like a huge red flag for me. And there's just so many like nooks and breakable pieces. I think you're better off just spending the $60 more and getting the classic, which is tried and true, been around forever. This one is beautiful. I love like how it looks. I love that there's no canister. Like that's my favorite part of it. I like that there's a smaller footprint, but for $200 more than the classic, plus you're losing that limited lifetime warranty, I just don't think that it's worth it. My recommendation, even though I don't own it, is I would totally go for the classic. It's been around forever. It's been proven. I think it's a great middle road. You're not getting the lowest end. You're not splurging on something that I think is mostly for looks. And I say that I do like the stone grind. Like, I think that's a cool component. I just don't think it's worth it. It's $500, $200 more than the classic. I would love to know what you think. Has anybody else tried, multiple of these? If you've tried the classic, what did you think about it? Was your experience with the impact the same as mine? I would just love to chat about your experience in the comments. If you have any questions about either of these mills, I'd love to talk about it. Other than that, I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope to see you in the next one.